Last one that you mentioned, all salary increases are board approved.
I know.
And the salary increases that were put out there, there were increases. When we had put our business administrator on suspension, we had to fill that role with an acting business administrator. We have Ms. Allen, who has not only been doing her job as assistant business administrator, but she's also picked up the entire job seamlessly and not missed a beat for this district as the acting business administrator. Obviously, this board felt it important to compensate her for that, and that was approved. The comments that are made on Facebook that Mrs. Chanley was referring to were absolutely horrifying and disgusting to see written about our staff, accusing the board of hush money to somehow pay off employees to keep quiet about the business administrator is absurd, and it's outrageous, and there's no place for that type of hate in our community. Our employees do not deserve what is being written about them by fake profiles on a disgusting page that pretends to be about education that is nothing but abuse and hate for our board members and our district employees. And it is so upsetting to read what was put out there today. The salaries are board approved. The increases were board approved.
Right.
Mrs. Chanley's confidential secretary was a secretary in the district. The confidential secretary to the superintendent had retired, not because of Mrs. Chanley or myself. That was, before. And the new confidential secretary to the superintendent applied for the job and filled the role. And yes, she was compensated for her new role in the district. It's not, this board, personnel reviewed it. It came to the full board. It was voted on unanimously by the board to approve. So I don't know what you find shocking about those, but the comments are what's shocking. The comments are what were addressed by Mrs. Chanley, and it really is upsetting. If you think that people are not reading that and are not considering not applying to Monroe Township, you'd be fooling yourself. And that is not because of this board, and it is not because of this superintendent. It is because what is being put out there misrepresenting this school district. We have our students achieving high achievements, working and going to great colleges, being highly successful, and we are doing them a disservice by putting out that type of hate, because we will not retain the staff that we have here if they're going to continue to be abused the way they're being abused on social media, and we're not going to attract the best that we can because nobody wants to come and be abused like that by their community. So, those salaries that you have listed there, I'm sure they are correct. That wasn't what the questions were about. If you have any other questions about, personnel issues, you can reach out and ask, but everything that has been approved by this board was unanimously approved.
No, and we discussed, Mrs. Skurbe, we discussed when Ms. Allen was promoted to her acting position, that was a question I asked at a board meeting a couple of months ago, which was explained to me. I understand that. And I'm not saying that the board doesn't have the right to change salaries. Of course you do, of course. But I do want to not leave the podium without an answer to my 17 or 20 question.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
and I also do want to make a statement that the Oprah Secretary's salary is incorrect. It's actually half of that.
I don't
So
know. I
that's,
didn't read
well,
it.
you made the statement that it was taken out of the board minutes. It's incorrect, so I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
And that regarding the restructuring of the technology department, because this is public knowledge, Dr. Lehman's in charge of that, and we had budgeted an amount for an additional position, and instead, Mr. Feldman, thinking out of the box, took that amount of money, restructured the entire department, and then that is where those salaries came from. So I do think it's very disheartening when I have to work with people who are emotionally distraught by the lack of respect in which they feel they're treated. I mean, I'm abused on a regular basis, but that's okay because, I'm front and center and I took this job knowing what I was getting into, and I'm still going to continue to do what's best for kids, so I'm okay with it. But when I work with these people that I find very endearing, it is very upsetting. And there were erroneous comments on there because Ms. Tagliaferro, who I've spoken with personally, who's sitting here, did not get a raise, and instead she got compensated appropriately for being the board secretary, which Mr. Gagliotti did approve that she does have the credentials. Thank you, Mr. Gagliotti. And she is permitted to sit in the role that she permits, that she's currently in, and she does get paid appropriately for the time that she puts in. So that was a little bit of a concern. So